Let me give you an idea. When I was in the law office, I was one of the youngest lawyers. And there were 80 lawyers at that time, about 80 lawyers. So I was at the bottom of the list of lawyers. When I transferred to Saligan, after a few years, I became executive director. So I was at the top of the hierarchy of Saligan. My salary as executive director was less than my salary as a first year associate, and that was several years ago. So the salary of a lawyer in an NGO is less than what government lawyers are getting, and definitely a lot less than what you can get from the private law offices. And I know many of the lawyers in the member organizations of the ALG that are doing practically volunteer work. They're getting whatever they can because their organizations are dependent on funding grants from donors, and it's difficult to sustain the regular compensation for the lawyers.
If I may wish to add,
So we do not really earn as much as those who are employed in the law firms. But that also forces us to keep a simple lifestyle. So our needs and wants change because of the resources that are made available to us. But at the same time, it also forces us to be creative. So many of us multitask, and many of us also earn from giving talks, maybe having consultancies, and other forms of lawyering, which, however, will not go against the interests of the poor.
may we know the gentleman's name? We forgot to.
Carlo Yao.
Okay, thank you, Carlo. Anyone else may want to ask? Yes, please. Name, please.
Florida from the Ateneo School of Government.
Okay,
My
welcome.
background is on accounting. I have no idea if this involves alternative lawyering, but it might involve human rights concern. I only see show on CI channel, cable channel. I only see that in a crime in the family happens, particularly a suicide case, no one in the family finds, no one in the family wants to be subjected for investigation. And still the government has to pursue investigation. It's not really like in the Philippines.
Anyone, please?
Because if there is a crime, the primary injured party is the state, the government, society. So even if there is no complainant, the state will have to do something about it as the injured party. But then it will be a problem of proving the crime itself if you do not have evidence, for example, or
What was the
witnesses.
case of Senator Mariano Santiago who did not want to be subjected for investigation during his son's suicide, Alice suicide case?
I think,
And
yeah.
yet there was no human rights outcry.
I think part of the situation there was lack of evidence, no witnesses, or no witness willing to come forward, and also political. I guess people did not really want to tangle with a senator.
But I really saw there was no effort from the government to pursue that investigation. And that was so irritating to me.
Yes, I think the effort was muted.
Thank you. Yes, please. Right. Go.
Alternative lawyers should also practice in the mainstream and still be an alternative lawyer. But when you're in the mainstream, you're assigned cases. And how do you deal with reconciling your principles with a call that or an assignment that makes you go against these principles? So how do you deal with it as a lawyer?
I'm reminded of an interview of an applicant lawyer who wanted to join Saligan, and we asked her why do you want to join Saligan. And she said, I live in a house with two lawyers. They were my roommates. And whenever they would go home at night, they would do nothing but curse the work that they have done. They would talk to each other and they would complain about the work that they had done. And she said, I told myself I would not want to go through that experience. Is that the general situation? I would say no. And there are many lawyers who are doing their work in law offices. But again, the options should be clear. If you want to work for the poor, to work with the poor, then that opportunity, again, as a general principle, is not in most law offices because of the client base, because of the nature of the cases that you are handling. Maybe you can work for the poor in a different capacity. But as a lawyer, and if you're working in a mainstream traditional law office, the general rule is that the opportunity to be with the poor and to work for the poor will not be that open.
Briefly, that is a question that everyone here will face. And I do not think it can be resolved now. But many of our graduates talk about that kind of situation. So many of them eventually leave a law firm. But many of them realize if they want to continue with a law firm, they have to concede some of their principles. So it is at the end a choice. Unfortunately, many of these law firms, when they find out that you are a product of the Human Rights Center, it is taken against you. And I'm proud of that.
Let me add something else, lest I be misunderstood. I'm not saying that as a lawyer for a corporation or as a lawyer for an employer that you cannot uphold your principles. I'm saying that it's a choice on which side you will be. But there is a big responsibility for lawyers, and not only for lawyers, there are many business managers who are here, to always have in mind that every document that you prepare, every contract you negotiate, every project that you help in starting and implementing would, in many cases, have an impact on communities. And you are in a position to see that. And you are in a position to ensure that what you are signing, what you are preparing, what you are doing will not cause injustice to the communities.
Thank you. I have a question here and one at the back, and here. Four. Thank you. And one in the front.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Malaya from 1D. I would like to ask, as alternative lawyers, you have so many different groups, women's legal rights, children, etc. But what is the biggest issue that you have to face? Like, what are the cases that you most have the hardest time to face or to, I don't know, to push forward?
It can be any case, but as long as you are facing very powerful interests, those are the difficult cases. One of my first sector as a young alternative lawyer was the urban poor. And I did not win a single case. Many of the communities I was handling eventually got demolished. And I was always fighting against their eviction and demolition. But we were against very powerful groups with plenty of resources. And my job at that time was, in the face of powerful interest, I simply had to make sure that their eviction would be just and humane. Because I knew in the end they will still be evicted. But the eviction must be just and humane.